Hey, Armand, good look at the week of May 12th, 2025. It's a firecracker week. This is what this is. This is a firecracker week. And why? Well, we have the Scorpio full moon beginning on Monday. It happens all day Monday. What difference does it make exactly what time? It's always going to be the Scorpio full moon on Monday. In fact, if you're watching this the weekend before, this is the Scorpio full moon vibe from about Saturday night onwards. And that'll carry through a good part of Monday into Tuesday. And the Scorpio full moon is always a little bit of a challenge. The moon doesn't really love being full, right? The great manifester, but it's a little too much manifestation when it's full. The moon doesn't like to be exposed like that. That's why we get full moon lunacy that happens every month. Moon also doesn't really like to be in Scorpio. The cutting nature of Scorpio is very much averse to the soft cream cheese nature of the moon being made of cream cheese, of course. And so the combination of being exposed and sort of sliced at is not a great combination. What does that mean for you? It means that people could be a little bit prickly about things. It means that things that sort of set people off are very likely to be tied to things that existed beforehand. The kind of thing like, you know, uh, you're at the restaurant and the waiter or waitress just doesn't acknowledge you. And of course, that might get you a little bit prickly. But with the Scorpio energy, it kind of reminds you of the time when, and now, we're back in third grade and you didn't get acknowledged for something. People passed you by, they didn't see you, and you've had just about enough of that. It's that kind of thing. The emotions tied to an event that could set you off are a little too strong because they are rooted in past experiences. It's not just this experience, it's the past experience. So any full moon, people get a little bit over the top about things, but the Scorpio full moon, especially so. The positive side of this, of course, is that if you need to express something that has been kind of pent up. Now, last week we had the Pluto station. We had Pluto station on May 4th. That was last Sunday. That's an implosive kind of energy. That's that kind of the nuclear force pulling everything together. And here we have the more explosive energy. Well, it's not necessarily a bad thing if you can control the nuclear reaction, I suppose is the trick to it. We had seems like every week, right? We had the Mars Pluto opposition, and then we had the Pluto station the following week, and now we have the Scorpio full moon. It's like we're having a lot of Plutonian energy lately, and that resonated back with the eclipses and so on. So we've really been in the midst of this, and this is really the Scorpio full moon is really the last of those major Plutonian kind of events for a little while. So I don't know. Depends how it's been going for you, but maybe it'll go a little bit better. There's certainly the possibility for that. The Scorpio full moon, incidentally, if you put a positive spin on it, it is considered to be it is considered to be the full moon of Buddha's birthday. And that kind of would make sense if you think about it. Scorpio being the sign of birth and death and stuff like that. And this is the full moon that we would connect to those things. And the Buddha, of course, the freedom from birth and death and old age and sickness, right? And so it kind of ties in very nicely with the Scorpio full moon. I mean, of course, I don't know when they decided that Wesak, the Buddha's birthday, would come on this full moon. But my guess is that it was fairly recently, and such birth times, who knows? And of course, also too, probably because we're talking about India and the East, we're probably just counting They're not thinking Scorpio full moon. They're probably just thinking, like the fourth month of the fourth full moon of the lunar year. And in fact, if you are working on an Indian calendar and the sidereal zodiac, then this full moon actually falls in the sign of Libra. I apologize for the digression, but that's what you get here. You get digressions and things that are on point. Watch out if this is the weekend of the 10th, 11th, 12th, I would say I hope you went out Friday night because we're going to get into the scorpionic energy. In the US, it's Mother's Day. Yeah. We should have some interesting times as far as that goes. Also on Monday, in parallel to the Scorpio full moon, Mercury is square to Pluto, the ruler of Scorpio. Now, Mercury Pluto squares are certainly opportunities to express yourself in a very frank, direct kind of way. And as I like to point out almost constantly, this is another opportunity for road rage. But Mercury squaring Pluto, and Pluto's in Aquarius. I think that the flavor that we get here is Mercury in Taurus would like to have some facts to work with, and Pluto in Aquarius is really just about the collective opinion. And the collective has lots of opinions, but it's a matter of taking facts and putting them up against the opinions of the opinions of the not necessarily the opinions, the convictions, the ideals of the collective. Well, you can see on the collective level, we're likely to see people who are saying this is what's true, and the collective responding to that in various ways. Okay, that is the beginning of the week. You know, a little caution is called for. Let's put it that way. But if you got something to say, pretty good opportunity to say it. Then we get to the 17th, that's Saturday. And now, so we're feeling this energy Friday, Saturday, especially a little lingering on Sunday. And that is the sun's annual visit with Uranus. They're going to conjunct, they're meeting together towards the end of Taurus. Well, this is another firecracker kind of energy, but a little bit different. And I think that this is much easier to negotiate than the Plutonian kind of energy. First of all, everybody has the desire to go do their own thing. Right? This is, what I want to do. Right? Everybody wants their independence. Everybody wants their freedom. Everybody wants their sense of, I'm going to go do what I want to do. Go do what you want to do. And then you've got the best, then, you get the best aspect for it. You're really getting pushed forward, right? The sun is conjunct Uranus, the planet of independence and revolution, and you've got the opportunity to go do what you want to do. The one thing you have to keep in mind is that everybody else also wants to go do the thing that they want to do. So cooperation, maybe not such a big thing right now. It could be, we should have the moon in Aquarius by the time we get this energy out there, and that should help a little bit. But basically, go do what you want to do, and if others don't want to come along and play, then you let them do their thing, you do your thing. We could get a little bit of high inspiration. It'd be great. Let's go play pickleball. And then then somebody else is like, well, what would be really good is if we, and they got, everybody's got their own little plan and stuff like that. So you go play pickleball by yourself. Well, you know what I'm saying. With Go play pickleball with some random person that you meet at the pickleball court who also had the idea. See, solving problems over here. That's what we're doing. Okay. Also, coming up towards the weekend, we have Mercury squaring Mars this time. Having squared Pluto, Mercury goes on to square Mars on the weekend. Okay, careful driving. Careful driving. Mars in Leo, kind of fast and fiery. Although Mercury in Taurus, going step by step, not so fast. But this is another opportunity to speak what's on your mind, to say what you got to say. Now, the Mercury Pluto aspect, more likely to show up, yeah, in our personal lives, but very likely to show up at the collective level. We see stuff going on. Whereas this Mars Mercury square is more likely to be part of our own personal lives. And again, that Sun Uranus thing is really fueling us up. And now here we have an aspect to really, let people know how we feel and what we're thinking, tell it like it is or like the way that you see it. So, kind of some volatile energies towards the end of this period of time. We get the 17th and 18th, but don't think about that as being bad or even particularly tense. As long as you don't constrain yourself too much, and as long because the musts and the shoulds, I should, I must, and all of that kind of thing. Um, who was the psychologist? Called it masturbation. Um, the being locked into your own ideas about the way you have to do things. And it is in the fixed sign of Taurus after all. But that could be a little bit of a constraint. And then, of course, if you're feeling like you want others to cooperate, that could be a constraint and you can feel a little bit locked in. If you get rid of your preconceived notions about the way to do things, could be quite fun. And that Mars Mercury energy, you can find a good way to work that out. Find a little friendly competition would not be a bad idea. A little bit of exercise or something along those lines all fits into the picture quite nicely. This is, by the way, the last time for about 78 years that Uranus and the Sun will meet in the sign of Taurus. As of next year, they're going to have their annual meeting for the next 7 years in Gemini. Mercury's getting Uranus is getting very close to Gemini, and that's going to be a big deal. That's going to be something. We'll be talking about that in just a little ways. This is also the week when Saturn is going through the very, very end of Pisces. And as Saturn goes through the end of the sign, he's going to come back in later, of course. It's not like he's gone for good. He's going to come back in at the end of the year and then get out again at the very end of this year. But he is spending time at the very last degrees of Pisces, which is the very last degrees of the zodiac. There's a kind of culling that goes on, right? I wouldn't. Well, people die all the time, so let's not make a thing out of it this way or that. Although I have to say, Christianity is very Piscean, and having the Pope die just as Saturn is leaving Pisces seems to be, pretty much a symbolic nod. But there is the sense of like, coming to an end of things, coming to the end of a cycle. And then of course Saturn is going to go into Aries next week. There'll be a video on that. That'll be showing up on the 20 it'll be showing up sometime soon. Subscribe, and then you don't have to worry about it. And hit the little notice thing. This way you'll get it delivered to you without having to go looking for it and without having for me to decide on the fly when I'm going to do that. So keep that in mind that this is the end of Saturn in Pisces. A couple of other things. The Sun is going to oppose partnership asteroid Juno, even as Pallas Athene also squares Juno. This is happening sort of like midweek and towards the weekend. Juno being the partnership asteroid, partnership commitment. It seems to me, if I was going to read this one way or the other, it seemed to me that this might be the time when you can get a real message out, that needs to be spoken in relationship. I would not do it too close to Monday and the Scorpio full moon, because then you might get a little bit more extra energy out of that. And I wouldn't exactly wait for the weekend Friday, Saturday, because you might get a little too much of the Uranus. But if you want to drop a message and you want to be heard, I would say that Wednesday, Thursday is pretty good for you. All right, that's enough.